Welcome to Truman's Town Hall with your host, Matt Truman.
Hello. Hello, are you there? Welcome to Truman's Town Hall. This is Matt Truman. Thank you for downloading this episode. Thank you for sharing with a friend. Today on the podcast, we're going to talk about a lot of stuff, and I'm glad you downloaded, and I truly appreciate everyone sharing with a friend. There's been a lot of sharing, and I appreciate it. Thank you, folks. Thank you for sharing. I'm glad you enjoyed this podcast. I'm glad you continue to download. I'm glad you continue to share. More and more folks are downloading, and I appreciate it. But without further ado, I've got to play a clip from Tucker Carlson. I've got to start with this.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. Elon Musk bought Twitter yesterday with the promise to restore free speech to America. And a lot of people were thrilled by that news. To them, it felt like liberation. Finally, they can say what they think out loud. They can participate in the life of their own country. They can be full citizens again. That's how they felt. But at the same time, a lot of other far more powerful people were not thrilled by this news. They were highly upset that Twitter will be lifting its speech restrictions. The ACLU warned that this was just way too much free speech. And the NAACP strongly agreed with that. The Washington Post concurred, of course, but it took a different angle. It is terrifying, explained Jeff Bezos' personal newspaper, when billionaires start buying media outlets. MSNBC and CNN did not laugh at that claim. They amplified it and added some. It turns out that Elon Musk is a hardcore white supremacist. Who knew? Technically, Elon Musk is an African American, but 2022 has been like that. You're always being surprised. So how do you make sense of all of this watching from home? Here you have one news story, but two diametrically opposed interpretations of the same story. So how do you determine who's right? Who are the good guys and who are the villains? We've been brooding about this all day, and we have devised a simple test to answer that question. We're about to show you two images. Both of them are famous. You've seen both of them before many times. They're both from the 1980s. Here's the first one. Now, get a pen and paper and record your reaction to it. And remember, there are no right or wrong answers. Watch.
Overnight, the wall went up, and overnight, family members were cut off from each other. A city and a country divided. There was a scramble to get out, people jumping from buildings even as their windows were being bricked up. Over the years, there were numerous escape attempts, via the checkpoints, through tunnels, even in hot air balloons. 3 decades later, communism began to crumble across the Soviet Union. The cracks appeared, and eventually, the wall came tumbling down.
So those last pictures, as you know, were from Berlin in the fall of 1989. Ask yourself, what did you just see? Did you witness the triumph of the irrepressible human spirit over forces of totalitarian control? Or did you find yourself annoyed by the senseless vandalism of government infrastructure? Who did you sympathize with as you watched that video? Was it the protesters breaking down that hated wall? Or did you find yourself feeling for the prison guards in the background who are going to have a lot more trouble keeping track of people once this sensible barrier is removed? Be honest, write down your answers. Now we're on to the second image. This one is from Beijing, China, same year, a few months earlier. So what do you see here? There's a man standing alone in front of a tank. Is that man a hero, risking his life for human rights? Or is he a hooligan impeding the progress of a government vehicle? Who do you sympathize with, the man or the tank? These may seem like easy questions, but that's only because those images are more than 30 years old. Everyone today supports the fall of the Berlin Wall and the freedom fighters in Tiananmen Square. But back in 1989, it was a mixed bag. Actually, a lot of highly respected people thought the Berlin Wall should stay up. That would include Margaret Thatcher and the president of France and a lot of others. Now, that may sound shocking to you, but really, it's not so different from what we're witnessing now. Now, today, we're witnessing a lot of well-respected people who are arguing with a straight face that Twitter, one of our main avenues for solving political differences, should remain censored. They're telling you, again with a straight face, that you can't have a democracy where everyone is allowed to participate in the conversation. No. In order to represent the public must be forced to shut up. That's what they're saying. So whose side are you on? The man or the tank? Keep in mind that if you chose the tank, you were by definition a Stalinist. We're not judging, but we thought you should know that. The good news is you've got a lot of company. Here's MSNBC.
There's studies that have been shown that this power can be used to tilt elections if someone were to want to use it that way. It's not enough to just rig law and policy. You want to rig the discourse. You want to make sure you control the terms.
If you own all of Twitter or Facebook or what have you, you don't have to explain yourself. You don't even have to be transparent. You could secretly ban one party's candidate or all of its candidates, all of its nominees, or you could just secretly turn down the reach of their stuff and turn up the reach of something else, and the rest of us might not even find out about it till after the election.
Oh, see, if a billionaire controlled Twitter, he could rig the discourse. That's a fair point. See, the thing about owning a social media company is you could, quote, secretly ban one party's candidate. Or even scarier than that, you could, quote, secretly turn down the reach of their stuff or turn up the reach of something else, and the rest of us might not find out about it until after the election. Yeah, that's a terrifying prospect. Democracy could not withstand that. Let's hope it never happens. What is it about cable television that completely eliminates people's self-awareness? Maybe NIH should do a study on that. It seems like a legitimate health crisis. We're being slightly unfair in that analysis. We do not mean, certainly, to suggest that it's only Democrats who favor censorship for political ends. Republican leaders support it, too. In a phone call reported today by the New York Times, for example, Congressman Kevin McCarthy of California told his close friend Liz Cheney that he hoped the social media companies would censor more conservative Republicans in Congress. Donald Trump, the sitting president, had already been silenced by those companies, but McCarthy wanted the tech oligarchs to do more, to force disobedient lawmakers off the internet. Quote, can't they take their Twitter accounts away too? Those are the tape-recorded words of Congressman Kevin McCarthy, a man who in private turns out sounds like an MSNBC contributor. And yet, unless conservatives get their act together right away, Kevin McCarthy or one of his highly liberal allies like Elise Stefanik is very likely to be Speaker of the House in January. That would mean we will have a Republican Congress led by a puppet of the Democratic Party. So you wouldn't know any of this unless it was leaked. And you can start to see why the people in charge oppose transparency and fervently support censorship on both sides. Why? Because the more you know about them, the less satisfied you're likely to become with their leadership. Here's the eunuch general of CNN's Praetorian Guard warning that the peasants cannot have too much liberty.
If you get invited to something where there are no rules, where there is total freedom for everybody, do you actually want to go to that party? Or are you going to decide to stay home?
Oh, you're going to stay home. Actually, if you let people choose, you never know what they're going to do. For example, CNN just spent more than $250 million on a streaming service that in the end attracted 10,000 viewers. Right, because people had a choice, and that's not what they chose. So if you're part of a company that made a decision like that, you'd be very much in favor of squelching the competition with censorship. Because if you didn't have a monopoly, you would wither and die. People would start asking questions like, why is equity so important again? Why do we care what TV personalities look like? Shouldn't we care about what they do, what they believe, about their characters? Over on The View, host Sunny Hostin is desperately hoping you will never be allowed to ask that question.
On Twitter, it is predominantly straight white men. So when Elon Musk says, wow, this is about free speech, it seems to me that it's about free speech of straight white men.
Elon Musk lives in a world in which the only kind of free speech is white men feeling free to say whatever the hell they want.
Oh. Now, we could rebut those points, and these people are obviously racist, and nobody says anything about it for some reason. But that's not really the big point. The big point, and we're going to restate it because it's the whole point, is this. Anyone who is angered by the prospect of American citizens expressing their opinions is a Stalinist and should be feared. We no longer need to guess who those people are. They have conveniently self-identified. It's a clarifying moment, but it's also a little scary because at this point, there is no going back. Once the kidnapper shows you his face, he can't release you. God knows what happens next. The Biden administration has jumped with all four paws into this, signaling it's going to use the weight of the federal government to crush Elon Musk because he wants you to speak freely. The day that Musk announced his intention to buy Twitter, the feds opened a probe into Tesla. That would be his electric car company and the source of the wealth that made it possible for him to buy Twitter. And at the same time, the Biden administration's allies in the media are uniting to defame Elon Musk and destroy him as a man, because that's what they do. He's a racist. They're about to do that to us again. The New York Times editorial board just published a stirring defense of censorship in a newspaper. On Twitter, the Times complained Musk will be free to, quote, body shame people. He can also, quote, poo-poo sound health regulations and shout down critics. And that can't be allowed. Thou shalt not body shame Tony Fauci. Tony Fauci is a very tall man. And by the way, the vaccines work flawlessly. Not very subtle. CNBC was even less subtle, by the way, in its character assassinations. That channel granted anonymity to a source identified as, quote, close to some of the Democratic Party's biggest Silicon Valley mega donors. What did this source come over to CNBC to say? Quote, Musk is a great engineer and businessman, but I would not trust him with my daughter. Oh, so he's a rapist now. Got it. Okay. No evidence whatsoever, but you should be afraid for your daughters because Elon Musk wants free speech. And NBC Nightly News, in between prostate health segments, strongly agrees with that. Watch them tell you that free speech endangers women way more than abortion clinics, TikTok, and Teen Vogue. Watch.
And some critics are concerned that Musk's pursuit of free speech will collide with growing safety problems on Twitter, especially for women and minorities. Do you trust Elon Musk to make Twitter better for women?
No, I don't trust Elon Musk to make Twitter better for women at all.
Oh, it's bad for women! It's pretty funny. Oh, the rich entitled ladies won't have a voice. Okay. But of course, everyone will have a voice, and that's what they're mad about. What they don't want is the coming of diversity, the one thing they say they love. There's no diversity at Twitter. As it stands, 99% of recent political donations from Twitter employees have gone to Democrats. 99%, 98.7% to be precise. Now, how much is that? Well, for perspective, Kim Jong-un got a much smaller level of support from workers at the central Pyongyang steel plant recently. So 99% of anything is a bad sign. It's a terrifying level of conformity. It suggests brain death. But brain death is what they're demanding. And that tells you everything. As Elon Musk himself wrote today, quote, the extreme antibody reaction from those who fear free speech says it all. And it certainly does.
I know that was long, folks. I know I play long clips on this podcast, folks, because we have the time, right? You guys are probably driving in your car, riding a bus, sitting on a train, what else? Walking down the street, cleaning your house. Who knows what you're doing? When I listen to podcasts, I'm cleaning my house, and I'm a clean freak. I love cleaning my house, and I have 4 kids that live at home, 1 that's out on his own. Thank you, Lord Jesus. And I'm ready for the other 4 to go. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. But I love cleaning my house, and I got to keep everything just how I like it. It's in disarray right now, so that gives me some things to do the next few days. Anyway, I get off topic easy too. So that was a long clip, and it's about what? It's about the First Amendment, folks. Those guys who wrote the First Amendment, those old straight white dudes, were not dumb. They knew that this is the first thing we need to do. Before keeping guns to protect ourselves and our country, which is the Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That one, right? Oh, wow, Matt, you rambled that off rather quickly. I did, because I know it, and I love it. Anyway, the First Amendment of the Constitution, the one that these old straight white dudes said, this is the one that we need to keep, for this is the first one we need to say. Congress shall make no laws respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble, and to petition the government for redress of grievances. Folks, in the United States, we're supposed to say, government, you're messing up. Here's our grievance. Right? A lot of folks would understand unions. I wrote a grievance in a union, and I won my grievance. Here's what it is. Our grievances are our gripes, are things that we think that go against the Constitution, are issues that go against the Constitution. All of that stuff. Those are our grievances. We should be able to do that without being demeaned or put down or called racist or called, angry straight white men. Look, I'm a straight white guy, right? But you know what? Just because I'm a straight white guy doesn't mean I hate gays or I hate anyone of a different color. I don't. I love everyone. I don't agree with lifestyles, but you know what? There's a lot of people that don't agree with my lifestyle. That's what it's all about, folks. You don't agree with me, I don't agree with you. Fine. Can we live together in the same country? Great. Let's enjoy it. All right. You have your lifestyle. I have mine. Great. Boom, boom, boom. We have something here. That's what those old straight white guys said back in the day. And we're not living to that. Why? Why aren't we doing that? Everybody's so afraid of Elon Musk taking over Twitter. Will it change? I hope so. I really do. I hope he's for freedom of speech. But who knows? Time will tell if he really truly is for the freedom of speech. Right? I'm not jumping on the bandwagon like, oh yeah, Twitter's going to change now. It may. It certainly may. And things may be able to get out. I don't know. The Hunter Biden laptop. Big stories like that. Those are important stories. Why are they important, Matt? They're important because the big guy, who is now the president, that's why it's important. I'm not a big Trump fan. Even more so now. I know. I was going to go to the Trump rally. I even signed up to get tickets, right? And I didn't go. I went to a lacrosse game, a middle school lacrosse game. My kid was playing. And I was like, I'm not going to go to that Trump rally. I was going to get some folks to record some, questions. Hey, what do you think about Trump? What do you think about his endorsements and the like, right? And bring it back to the podcast. So I apologize, but I went to a lacrosse game. I didn't go. But I saw his endorsements, and yuck. Frank LaRose? Folks, if you live in Ohio, Frank LaRose is the guy we don't want. And Trump endorsed him. Operation Warp Speed Trump. Trump's done, folks. I'm telling you right now, Trump is done. Done. He's done. You need DeSantis in Florida. He better step up now. There's other folks out there, but we'll talk about that on a different podcast. Tucker Carlson mentioned Kevin McCarthy, who is the current House Minority Leader, who could be the Speaker of the House if the Republicans take over the House. And he mentioned Kevin McCarthy leaking a tape about President Donald Trump. Let's listen to the backstabbing. Mr. McCarthy talking about Trump.
But let me be very clear to all of you, and I've been very clear to the president. He bears responsibilities for his words and actions. No ifs, ands, or buts. I asked him personally today, does he hold responsibility for what happened? Does he feel bad about what happened? He told me he does have some responsibility for what happened.
That's just a piece of the recording of Kevin McCarthy talking about President Trump on January 6th. Ladies and gentlemen, January 6th. I don't know. It's my opinion that there were some bad actors that were there, of course. But there were some folks there instigating the whole event. Why were they instigating the whole event? Oh, I don't know. Look at where we're at today, folks. It's all a big plan. You think we're just, hanging out and I'll vote and it's just how it goes, right? You vote and that's the politician you get. No, there's people playing the game. There's people in power and government right now willing to play the game with your enemies, with folks who don't believe like you, who want to control you, who want to take away your First Amendment right, your Second Amendment right, your Third Amendment right, and so on. Ladies and gentlemen, we are living in strange times. What's up is down and what's down is up. Am I wrong? Am I wrong? The past 10 years have been bonkers for me, for you, for all of us. The past 20 years, the past 22 years have been insane. For Americans, I know for sure, for us. But for those who listen in Australia and India and Canada and the UK, folks, we've all been living in crazy times. We've all been living in crazy times, and we have to wake up to the nonsense that is being played on us by our government. No matter where you live, we have to stand up to this. We have to get folks running for office who are true patriots to our country. If you're in Canada, if you're in the UK, if you're in Australia, if you're in India, you have to stand up, find folks who will run for office that work for you, that don't control you, that serve you. Because I'm biased because I'm an American, but our Constitution was designed very good. Is it perfect? No, it's not perfect. But is it the best out there? In my opinion, I think it is. Who am I? I haven't read India's Constitution, if they have one, and well, we kicked you. I'm sorry, Britain, but we kicked your butts. All right. A long time ago. Hey, Australia, you guys feel us, right? The Americans, right? We kicked Britain out, India, you guys feel us. You kicked Britain out too. Come on. We're all in this together against Britain. No, I'm just kidding. I love everybody. All right, let's play another clip, ladies and gentlemen. I think we need an update with he's not our friend, right? We haven't talked to him on the podcast, but Malcolm Nance. Man, if you know how to get Malcolm Nance on this podcast, I don't know how to reach out to him, but if I did, I would get him on here. But here's an update. It's from CNN, folks. See, I play it all. I play CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, DW News, WeOn News. I play Patrick Lancaster, Alex Jones, Joe Rogan. I play it all, folks, because you need to hear it all, right? All right. Well, here's CNN and an update with Malcolm Nance.
The State Department has issued a new warning to any Americans choosing to travel here to Ukraine, saying the United States is not able to evacuate U.S. citizens from the country, including those U.S. citizens who travel to Ukraine to engage in the ongoing war. In addition to other risks to personal safety, the warning says U.S. citizens should be aware that Russia has stated it intends to treat foreign fighters in Ukraine as mercenaries rather than as lawful combatants. That's worrisome. That warning directed towards people like our next guest, who said he's done talking, he's now chosen to join the fight. He is former Naval Intelligence Officer and former TV analyst as well, Malcolm Nance. Malcolm, good to have you on this morning.
Good to see you.
I've had the pleasure to meet a few folks here like you, U.S. veterans who have come over here to risk their lives to help defend Ukraine. And I always ask, why? What's leading you to risk your life to come here?
I spent 20 years in the armed forces and 16 so years in and out of U.S. intelligence. And, my entire motivation was that I believed in the defense of democracy. I believed in the values that I was raised on as a child of Philadelphia. My family served in the armed forces nonstop since 1864. And when my great-great-grandfather ran away from slavery, he fought for the same values. I see those values being threatened here in Ukraine on a strategic scale. Ukraine is now involved with a nation that has sworn they would eliminate it as a culture, as a language, as a people. I had friends in the Ukrainian armed forces in the first days of this fight that were begging for their lives, saying they were going to die as the Russians' onslaught came. And I decided I wasn't going to sit here. I wasn't going to sit on television and do analysis anymore. I was going to come help them. And that's what I'm here to do.
Good for you. Now, it's interesting, Ukrainian officials often characterize it the same way, saying this is a war not just about Ukraine, it is Ukraine fighting for Europe, for the West. Are you willing to die here for this fight?
You know, I get this question all the time. I spent my entire life willing to die for all the democratic values that we espouse in the United States. Our Constitution is the bedrock of many other countries striving for democracy. So yes, I'm here to put my body between the innocent people of Ukraine and the Russian aggression that we're seeing here. And this isn't a joke to the people who are here in the International Legion. There are thousands who have come to this country from 52 nations, men and women, U.S. Army veterans, Navy veterans, Japanese, Korean. We have many people here who understand just how existential a threat this is, not just to the Ukrainian culture, but to Western democracy itself. That's why I call on anyone who has combat experience to come and help us. Because this battle, if they lose it here, you're not just losing Ukraine. You're allowing a dictator, a kleptocrat who has been stealing from his own people. You can see his what he calls an army, which is really just a horde of people who are stealing, raping, murdering, drinking alcohol, and doing all of these things and being honored for it. This country needs weapon systems that we have. The world is now mobilizing to a system. And yes, every one of us who came here are here for the defense of Ukraine. And if that means our lives, well, that's what we have sworn our oath for.
Let me ask you this, because our last visit here in Ukraine in the early stages of the war, we met with volunteers with a mix of backgrounds. Some of them did have previous combat experience, and I know that the folks vetting volunteers are looking for folks like you, right? I mean, they want folks who've been to war. Are you seeing mostly experienced volunteers there joining the fight, or do you see some who may not belong in this war?
Well, in the organization I belong to, the International Legion for the Defense of Ukraine, we are the foreign fighter force for the armed forces of Ukraine. We are members of the Ukrainian army. There are a lot of freelancers out of here, people who have come here, who couldn't get accepted into the Legion, who tried to get in or, weren't accepted, who've just gone on and tried to join territorial defense units and other militias, things like that. They are unlawful combatants on the battlefield. The Legion is a part of the Ukrainian armed forces. We have Geneva Convention rights, ID cards, despite what the Russians say. The Russians aren't going to give anyone any right to life in this country, Geneva Conventions or otherwise. They mass murder civilians. So when we come here, we are coming here legally, lawfully, and working within the parameters of the Army of Ukraine.
It's an important point you make there that the Legion does have those Geneva Conventions. It's official. That said, of course, to your point, not clear the Russians ever consider following those conventions. Malcolm Nance, I'm sure a lot of folks watching here agree. We salute the effort and the sacrifice you're making. Thanks for joining us.
Well, it's my pleasure. And Slava Ukraini.
Folks, that is what it is. That's a report from Malcolm Nance. He's on the ground. I'm not. I'm sitting in a plush estate in the state of Ohio. I'm in a leather chair. Listen, I'm talking to you on a computer with internet. Lights are rolling. I have cold beverages. My fridge works. Tonight I fixed for my family. It was Taco Tuesday, so I made tacos for the family, and I had the whole spread. I cut up some tomatoes, onion. I made some refried beans. I ground India. The folks listening in India, do not listen to this last thing that I made. It was All right, they're not listening right now. All right, they got their hands over their ears. It was ground beef. Okay, Andy, you can come back in. And I also did some guacamole, cheddar cheese, sharp cheddar. Oh, I like the sharp cheddar cheese with a little bit of, what was it? Monterey Jack cheese. Oh, folks, I'm a good cook. I'm just going to put it out there like that. I'm a pretty good cook. Anyway, wow, see, you guys love this podcast, or you wouldn't listen to all these rambling nonsense sequiturs that we do here. So that was Malcolm Nance, and I don't know how I even got talking about food, but I love it. I was talking about, he's there, I'm here, and sitting in this, folks, I'm just describing the difference, right? Okay, I can make fun of him if I want to, but he's there. All right, whether he's there as a prop or whatever, but he's also talking about he's serving with Ukrainians, so he's going to talk about their propaganda. There's other propaganda out there, all right? Whether it be Russian propaganda or Ukrainian propaganda, NATO propaganda, U.S. propaganda, UK propaganda, Germany propaganda, whatever propaganda, it's propaganda. It is. It's talking points that's coming from the government that trickles down to the people, and the people spew it out to say, hey, we believe in this side, right? I want to get all sides. I want to understand what is happening before I make a decision. I have a right to do that as an American. God bless America. All right, Patrick Lancaster, I'm going to play you the opening of this. I posted the entire video that he did with this on Truman's Town Hall podcast Facebook page. So it's, if you want to get on Facebook, you type in Truman's Town Hall podcast. My beautiful face will pop up. You click it, you follow it, and boom, right? It's there. So I encourage you to follow it. I try to post daily on different things I'm looking at. I don't always cover everything that I post over there on the podcast, but I try to keep everybody updated on different things that's happening around the world, that's happening in the United States, it's happening everywhere. But here's Patrick Lancaster, folks. It's an opening to his latest video. He's rolling with the Russians, right? We need to get all sides, all perspectives. That's why we played the beginning of the free speech with Elon Musk taking over Twitter. We need all perspectives because, folks are concerned about misinformation and disinformation and all this stuff. Well, you know what counters that? You know what counters bad speech is more speech, right? And what I mean by that is this. If you think it's bad speech and you think folks are talking out of school, or they're not discussing the topics that you want to hear, or they're lying, well, you counter that with your own speech. Therefore, you can combat that with that. I mean, and everywhere we want government to censor, we want big tech to censor, we want that. No, put it all out there and let folks decide. That's what it's all about. Oh, well, we need structure, and no, you don't. No, you don't. You just need to understand that, well, do you have common sense? Okay, that's a plus. Good, you got common sense and you can understand these things, right? Whatever we're talking about, I can understand topics. It's not hard to understand that there's propaganda coming out from the United States. There's propaganda coming out from India. There's propaganda coming out from Australia and Canada and Belarus and Moldova, right? Moldova's big right now because there's explosions happening and it's close to Ukraine. And will this conflict drift into Moldova? Will it drift into Romania? Will it drift into Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia? All these Baltic countries, folks. Does it drift into the world? Do we have nuclear option? Is now being talked about? Is it on? Well, it's on the table, folks. It is. Anyway, without further ado, Patrick Lancaster, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm Patrick Lancaster. Right now, we're in Mariupol, very close to the Azovstal plant, which is one of the last strongholds of the Ukrainian forces in Mariupol. We're here with the Russian military, and they are going to be distributing humanitarian aid to some of these people that are still living here, because this is a street-to-street battle. Their streets have been filled with fighting for a month, but there's still people that live here that weren't able to evacuate, that haven't had food, because there are humanitarian aid. Many Russian humanitarian aid points, both Russian and DPR distribution points. But in areas like this, where it's a no-go zone and people are just been hiding in their basement for the last 6 weeks, they don't get any of this aid because it's hard to get it here. But we're here with these soldiers that have made it a point today to bring these civilians humanitarian aid. So we're going to see how that process goes. Please like this video, share it across all social media, and remember, I'm a totally independent crowdfunded journalist who you can support my work with the link on the screen or in the description.
All right, so I watched that video. And I would play the whole video for you guys, but there's a lot of Russian being spoken, and I don't know how many folks listen to this podcast that actually speak Russian. Probably not a lot, because I check who listens from around the world. I know my folks in India listen. I love y'all. Australia, UK, Canada. Thank you, guys. I truly appreciate it. It boggles my mind that folks in other countries or other states in the United States listen to this podcast. But I do appreciate it, and I thank you so much, and I appreciate you sharing the podcast, and that's why I keep doing it, and I keep researching different topics, because I want you folks to get the correct information. And I truly appreciate everybody listening, but it's insane that folks outside of my little bubble listen to this podcast. But anyway, Patrick Lancaster, he's an American, but he's also, I believe he's married to a Russian or possibly a Ukrainian woman. But he sent his kids over to Russia and his wife. And, he comes at it with a Russian perspective, but you hear Malcolm Nance and then you hear Patrick Lancaster, and you see, or what I saw is Malcolm Nance is like, the Russians are supremely evil and they're just killing civilians, blah, blah, blah. And I don't mean to say blah, 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 right? That is happening. Civilians are dying and my heart breaks, and doggone it, I pray for y'all every day. I really do. Everyone that is caught in this madness, even the folks in Yemen, just all around the world. And I just, whether it be a generic prayer, I just say, Lord, watch over them. I try to. Anyway, Patrick Lancaster he's part of the other spectrum, where he's talking about how Russians are actually providing water and food. And I saw this video, and there is a Russian soldier there and saying, I'm trying to get food to these people. And, we're all people, are we not? I know there's a lot of folks who like to break in and say, well, you're a white person, you're a black person, you're a brown person, we must be divided. There's a lot of people that like to do that to gain political power. But in the eyes of God, we're all people, aren't we? So we all should love each other. Stop this war bull crap and just love each other. It would be a lot better. I mean, we could share our gardens, share our food. Hey, you're out of that? I got you, right? It should be like that. Life would be so much easier on all of us. But we're always, especially here in America, we're always too worried about making the next dollar and how much money can we make, right? It's insane to me. I don't know. Maybe because I grew up poor. But anyway, poor in my standards, right? No lights, no water type poor. I mean, in America, that's pretty damn poor. But in other parts of the world, it's not. It's like that's daily life. So who knows? All right, let me play another clip, folks. I'm rambling, and I will continue to do that if I don't play another clip. Here you go, folks.
Johnny Vedmore recently published an article exposing the hidden history of the mysterious World Economic Forum, who is currently waging war against the world with their Great Reset. Founder and director Klaus Schwab's three mentors were the most influential people in America's thermonuclear deterrence program, as well as leading proponents of a one-world government. Henry Kissinger recruited Klaus Schwab at the Harvard International Seminar, which was funded by the CIA. During this time, Kissinger was focused on global governance and depopulation. But it was with the Council on Foreign Relations that Kissinger became a major player by wargaming psychological operations involving America's growing thermonuclear weapons arsenal and writing the book on nuclear weapons and foreign policy. John K. Galbraith was a highly influential economist who helped Klaus Schwab create the World Economic Forum. Galbraith was an economist at Harvard who traveled to Germany in 1938 to study land policies under Hitler's National Socialist government. From there, he went to work on an advisory committee for FDR's New Deal. After World War II ended, his work shifted into nuclear weapons. Galbraith was tasked with evaluating the overall economic effects of the wartime bombing. He interrogated Nazi war criminal Albert Speer and was sent to Hiroshima and Nagasaki to evaluate the damage caused by the nuclear weapons attack. By 1968, Galbraith had joined Kissinger in his pursuit of a one-world government. And it was during this time that Kissinger introduced Galbraith to Klaus Schwab, along with Herman Kahn, who in 1967 suggested subverting democracy by training a select group of global leaders, which later became the World Economic Forum's Young Global Leaders. Both Kissinger and Galbraith were heavily involved in the religion of thermonuclear deterrent warfare. But Herman Kahn was, as the New Yorker puts it, the heavyweight of the Megadeth intellectuals, and is commonly referred to as the real Dr. Strangelove. Kahn wrote the official military policy on nuclear deterrence and believed that if everyone had nuclear weapons, the world would know peace. By the late 60s, Kahn was pushing for a European Union and joined Galbraith in 1970 on a European speaking tour to support Klaus Schwab's recruitment drive for the first European Management Symposium, now known as the World Economic Forum. And while they were doing that, Klaus Schwab helped merge his father's nuclear weapons company into a company that he then directed to illegally build nuclear weapons for the South African government. In 1972, the Club of Rome published The Limits to Growth, which planted the seeds of the depopulation agenda. And while Kahn, Kissinger, and Galbraith helped Schwab get started, what really brought him the international support he was hoping for was when he introduced the ideas of depopulation. In 1972, the Club of Rome's founder was invited by Schwab to make the keynote speech in 1973. As controversial as it was, even Herman Kahn opposed it, the World Economic Forum suddenly caught the attention and financial support of powerful elitists everywhere and blew up to what it has become today. The article suggests that Schwab's supervillain persona is a deliberate marketing tactic to gain the attention from those who seek power and wealth, to join Klaus Schwab as stakeholders in society. The author believes that the World Economic Forum is reaching its maximum level of expansion before its inevitable collapse, because eventually people will fight back. But they already know that, and all they really seem to care about is world government, depopulation, and thermonuclear war.
All right, folks, that was a report by Greg Reese. Wow. Club of Rome, Bilderberg Group, all these secret societies out there. Folks, we're just we're small potatoes. We're small potatoes when it comes to these folks. You don't think there's a plan for the entire world? You don't think there's folks working in the background wanting to depopulate the world? Oh, we're just useless eaters. Haven't you heard that? We're useless eaters. That's what they think of us. Folks, there's just a lot of things that I think we don't think about, and a lot of things we can't fathom that is finally bubbling to the surface. There is a them versus us mentality. It's not us. We want everyone to live together in harmony, and then there's folks out there who want to kill us, literally, I believe. Call me crazy, call me a conspiracy theorist, whatever. That's fine. But there are plays being made that we know, and there's plays being made that we don't know. All right. So if I'm a conspiracy theorist, great. There's a dude I've been following for a while called Canadian Prepper. He's out of Canada, right? And he puts out a YouTube channel and he talks about a lot of what's happening in Ukraine and different things. So if you're a YouTuber, check out Canadian Prepper. But I'm going to play his video. It might be long, but I'm going to play as much of it as I can and let you listen to it. You take from it what you will, but there are things in the works, folks. I play the John Bowne report just to give you a sense of good, what I think is good reporting, good history, or decent history. There's some things that you can pick out and say, nah, that's not accurate, right? But that's what it's all about. Freedom of speech. Oh, that's not accurate. Okay, so then counter it with something else. truepodcast@gmail.com. Anyway, here's Canadian Prepper.
Guys, if there's one thing that people take away from this channel, just one thing. It's, how can I say this in the most non-politically charged way possible? Because as many of you know, I'm very moderate to the core. The government is going to do what's right for the government. End of story, period, point blank. But no matter how many times that is demonstrated throughout history, even though it was just demonstrated, a classic example that we are going to talk about in the next 5 minutes, it was just demonstrated so explicitly, people are still going to fall for the same old tricks. And let me just make this clear. I understand where the government's coming from. Okay, I used to work in middle management. Now I'm in management. I get it. I get that you have to do what's right for the greater good. You must tell the noble lie. Maybe that's what I will title this video as. The noble lie is important. It serves a purpose to ensure the greater good. Unfortunately, if you're any self-respecting individual, you will think for yourself in times of crisis. Because in times of crisis, the government, when the going gets tough, the tough get authoritarian. And that's all there is to it. This was proven in Kiev. There is no better example in recent history than what has happened in Ukraine. And they blatantly, talk about it. They blatantly admit to it, that they lied to their people about the Russians invading. The spokesperson for the Zelensky government came out and said in an interview, and you could pretty much put this in exact quotes, we didn't want to start a panic. We didn't want to create gridlock because our military would not be able to counteract the Russian threat. From a managerial standpoint, I understand it. From a person who owns a business, I understand why you must tell the noble lie, why you must do what's best for the greater good, why you must be authoritative in some instances, why you must fire people in some cases, why you must have rules. But as individuals, as the people who got trapped, literally trapped there, and were forced to be conscripted against their will because they were lied to, essentially lied to. If there's anything you take away from this channel, it's this, is that is what will happen here. It's because everything about that country is being propped up by our countries. So they are a shining example of what we can expect. In fact, we were all told the noble lie 2 years ago. You remember? Masks don't work. What other way? There's countless lies around the whole pandemic, okay? And we were told this for our own good because they did the math, the actuarial scientists, okay, if we say this, then this many people will die. If we say this, this many people will die. So we won't say this, but still quite a few people are going to die, right? Now, this is very, very unsettling, very, very unnerving to know that we will not be told exactly what is going on. And this bears repeating every single day. People must constantly be aware of this fact. And like I said, this doesn't stem from some, I hate how conservatism is what's been pegged as the anti-government party, because to me, left or right, it doesn't matter. You should always be critical of authority. And typically the left has been critical of authority. Most of the, progressive movement is anti-authoritarian in a lot of ways. It's just that now, because they have kind of taken over essentially. And if you guys want to know a little sidebar here, the reason why the progressives are, and the reason why society becomes more and more progressive is because the progressive are the artists, and the artists are the avant-garde of culture. And as such, they create the future. So, you may laugh at the blue-haired, purple-haired, whatever now, who's screaming on the street corner, but they inject the seeds of culture that take root in the future. Right now, they just look like a quack. But down the line, all of those mannerisms become integrated into the culture, and they become normalized in the culture. Anyways, that's just a little sidebar, a little side piece of wisdom for you guys, all right? That is why they own the future, because most conservatives are, fairly content just doing what they do, just working hard, getting by, trying to pay as little taxes as possible because, why would you want to pay tax to an incompetent government? But, the fact of the matter is the artists are the ones that rule the future. The conservatives rule today. You can put that on a t-shirt if you want. Right now, what's going on in Shanghai is...
Say it's all right. Say it's all right.
Very, very unsettling. It's incredibly unsettling. I don't know what is going on there. All I know is that it appears that they're trying to prove a point. I watched a 15-minute video of people shouting from buildings, beating pots and pans, pleading with the authorities, fighting with the authorities for some food, guys fishing with drones, literally trying to fish with drones to get food, people, clamoring for food through fences because they can only get food in certain districts because areas are cordoned off. And it's just it's incredibly bizarre what is going on there right now. And I can only suspect that the reason for it is to test the limits of what people will accept. Here, we got to the point where, while there in the States, you guys got to January 6th.
All right, so that was just a little bit of the Canadian prepper. You guys can check him out on YouTube if you want to. I recommend it. It's interesting. It's entertaining at best, right? Or at worst. At best. I mean, it's entertaining at worst. We live in a weird world. We live in a world where things just... We all question things. That's why you're listening to this podcast, right? Because you have questions too. That's why you listen to maybe other podcasts or watch different videos or take in different media like movies and different things, right? Because you have questions. Because we're all inquisitive about life and what is happening around us. And is there a greater good? Is there someone out there who's going, everybody's looking at Elon Musk to be the savior. Folks, Elon Musk bought Twitter for $44 billion, right? Is he the savior? No. Absolutely not. Will free speech happen on Twitter? Maybe. Maybe it will. Who knows? It's yet to be seen. Right? I mean, I hope so. I would love to have, news stories not filtered or censored or taken off. I run a page on Facebook. It's been hit by Facebook, right? And our goal is simply free speech. And you know what? Not a great deal of people have taken on to that. Because, folks, there are people out there that don't believe like you and I, that don't believe in free speech. They just don't believe in it. They enjoy being controlled. They enjoy having their life dictated to them. Here's what you need to do. Here's how you do it. That's the way it's done. If you don't do it, there are consequences. People believe that is how life should be led. It's not. You should have a choice in how to live your life. What you say, what you do. You should have a choice. There are folks out there that, well, if you don't believe like I believe, then you're wrong. No. Look, if you don't believe like Matt believes, I don't think you're wrong. I may think you're dumb, but I don't think you're wrong. And I might be dumb for thinking you're dumb. But it is what it is.
The next clandestine move for the architects of the Great Reset following the pandemic vaccine rollout that is slowly happening, killing millions as I speak, will be known as cyber warfare.
Imagine one day you woke up to find your phone was dead. Your bank account was empty, and when you turned on the faucet, nothing came out. You can't go to a neighbor for help because they're all in the same situation. You have no idea how it happened or even how you could figure that out. Don't start freaking out just yet, but this reality could be a lot closer than you might think.
And just as the pandemic was publicly forecasted amongst its conspirators months before its rollout, so too it goes with the coming cyber warfare predictive programming of the flip of the power grid kill switch.
Cyber attacks must be treated as a serious threat by our leadership, the highest levels.
Look, today my administration is issuing new warnings that based on evolving intelligence, Russia may be planning a cyber attack against us.
We've already seen with the Colonial Pipeline and with many others, it's not just stealth of data, it's shutdown of critical infrastructure. And we've seen it with Colonial Pipeline, we've seen it with hospitals, we've seen it with factories that were shut down. And many of these attacks are activated by private organizations, private criminals, but some of these attacks are also behind them. There is government-sponsored attack.
But which governments have embedded what is known as the Swiss Army knife of malware into critical infrastructure? All signs point to the United States government.
It was looking for these things that are called PLCs, or these small computers that control things like factories, like the power grid. What you see here is the code that is put onto the PLC, and this is the normal process. Code goes onto the PLC, turns the PLC on or off, and controls it.
As the Cyber Security and Infrastructure Security Agency wrote in their alert for the APT cyber tools targeting ICS SCADA devices, the Department of Energy, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, the National Security Agency, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation are releasing this joint cybersecurity advisory to warn that certain advanced persistent threat actors have exhibited the capability to gain full system access to multiple industrial control systems, supervisory control, and data acquisition devices, including Schneider Electric Programmable Logic Controllers, Omron Sysmac Next PLCs, and Open Platform Communications Unified Architecture servers.
There is an energy producer in Texas who has identified a very serious malware instance in their system. This malware is not just in systems like a Windows, Vista that is sitting in one of these plants. No, it is in the Schneider Electric Programmable Logic Controllers. That's a PLC. It is in the Omron, Sysmac, NEX PLCs, and the Open Platform Communications Unified Architecture servers. Some of this stuff could only be put into these devices at the manufacturer. And so when I asked our dude named Ben Protector of Megawatts, I said, what does it look like to you? These guys look at this stuff all day long. They say, Russian? Because the Russians are the ones that people really do fear. You know, if you got the ghost in the machine, these guys are good. He says, this looks like our guys. Yeah, without making a formal accusation, of course. Of course, there's people who are doing reports on it, but it is not the hold on to your ass because the lights could go out in Texas or New York or anywhere. This would be the one, and they're not making a big deal out of it, which makes me highly suspicious.
This move will plummet civilization into chaos and total submission unless you are one of the lucky few that has already made preparations. John Bound reporting.
Well, I'm planting a garden this summer. I'm planting a garden. I got a pretty decent sized backyard. I'm planting a decent garden. And we'll see how it goes. Folks, there's a lot of crazy things out there. A lot of crazy things to think about. Now, I don't play these videos to say you have to believe them. If you don't believe them, I don't want you to listen to this podcast. No. It's not what I play them just as information. All the clips we play on here, it's information. It's things to fill up your brain. Sometimes I agree with it. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I question it, like that last clip, you know. Is our government really going against us? Possibly. But I don't think so, you know. I hope not. You know, I was a government employee as a soldier and as a mailman. I would hope that our government isn't against us. But it's possible, right? Prepare for everything. Now, what is up with the food processing plants? Have you guys, look, I know I played a couple conspiracy theory type clips on here today, right? I admit that. But what is up with the food processing plants? Folks, like a lot of food processing plants have been on fire around the United States. I don't really know about around the world, but doggone, what is up with that?
Activate Kabbalah News Desk. We have a breaking situation going on just to our south. This is in Salinas, a huge fire at a food processing plant. This is for Taylor Farms. And right now there are concerns about a huge plume of ammonia coming from this area. And they have an evacuation in the immediate area as well as a shelter in place all the way out to Highway 68. Now emergency authorities are warning us that they could end up closing down parts of 101 in Salinas. Again, this is in Monterey County. This food processing plant went up late last night, and it's just grown. It looks like it is a total loss right now. We've seen several roofs collapsing. This was in a cold storage processing plant where apparently a welding project sparked a fire in a wall, and that eventually spread to the attic of this huge facility. No people or produce were inside the plant, which was actually closed for the season. It was set to reopen on Monday. So we are going to keep an eye on all.
I wish that was the only one that happened, but there's a lot of food processing plants have been mysteriously caught on fire. Welding accidents, whatever. Folks, stock up on food. Just do it. We're at the threat of World War III. Food processing plants are on fire. I mean, come on. What do you have to lose? Build a garden, right? Buy some rice at the store. Beans. Buy a little cow if you got land. If you have land, buy a cow. Not for the folks in India, though. Don't buy a cow if you're there. I don't know. Do you guys kill goats? I don't know. truepodcast@gmail.com. I don't know. Crazy. We're living in times unprecedented. Nothing that I've ever experienced in my life. I worry for our kids. What are they going to experience? It's nuts. Look into it, folks. Look into it. I'm Matt Truman. This is Truman's Town Hall. Thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. Thank you for sharing. I'll be back probably in a couple days, maybe next week. Who knows?